Okay, so I decided to do all the external influences in one video. But the thing is, right, this video is going to take quite a while. So if I were you, I'd pause it at certain bits and really try and understand that a little bit. So don't just kind of watch the whole thing through and then not understand it. Pause it after each one and think, do I actually know this? Okay, so these are like kind of on the edges of the course. These are the differences, in my opinion, between getting an A and getting an A star. So it's really important to get good at this. So I'm going to go through different ones at different parts and see what you think. Okay, I'm going to start off with features of the European Union. Now, you might not know much about the European Union, and all you need to know really is the UK is in the European Union, so we're part of it. And there's a few key features when the UK is part of the European Union, and you might know these yourself anyway. Right, so what would be good for the UK, or why are we part of the European Union? What's the kind of positives? One, there are no trade barriers. That means that no one's allowed to put like a tax on your goods, they call it a tariff, on your goods from the UK going into like Italy. So Italy can't put any taxes on UK goods, they've just got to accept it and put it in. That's one good thing. There's a second good thing, is there's free movement of people. I need to zoom in here. This is a shame. Of people and businesses. Right, what this means is, anyone, if I wanted to, I could go to Spain and work in Spain and they can't stop me. Well, they'd probably say you can't speak Spanish and you'd be rubbish, but still, they can't stop me. Whereas if I want to go to America, you've got to get a green card, it's really hard to get into America, but they can't stop me when it's within Europe. So there's free movement of people. But also as a business, if I wanted to set up my business in France, they'd just have to let me set up. They can't say, oh no, you're not allowed to, you're not French. They have to let you in. Which is why, just out of interest, why when the Conservatives said in the last election, we're going to cut immigration, they can't do it, they can't actually stop it, because people from the European Union are allowed in. Anyone within the European Union, no matter where you are, you're allowed into the UK. There's nothing we can do to stop you. Okay, so, they're the main features, they're the ones that matter. Now I'm going to zoom in for the next bit, right? And this one is, what's good and bad about being ethical? Now before we start saying what's good and bad about being ethical, I want to start off by saying ethical means doing things which are morally, maybe, right. Now, you could probably check to see if morally's got two L's or not. Right, what's good and bad about being morally right? Why would you want to do it? Now, I like to think about different stakeholders when I think about this, because it's just easier. So think about, I'll just write some stakeholders, because the stakeholder is someone who's got an interest in the business. So I might say employees, I might say customers. What else might I say? Government. Local people. And then finally I might say suppliers. Right, while I'm saying all this, I'm thinking about what would be good and bad about being ethical towards those people. So I can now go through my points. So I'll do bad later on, so I'll do good first. What's good about being ethical? Right, the first good thing about being ethical, or you could say a load of things, is if you're ethical towards your customers, so I'll start off with this one. How can I do that? Start off with this one. The good thing about being ethical towards your customers is, well, they're more likely to buy your products. So it'll be easier, you'll make more money. Now, you could, if you want to, put an extra line in and say, one way you could be ethical towards your customers is by giving them a product that's actually good for them. And this would be good because they're more likely to buy your product. Right, the second one you might say, you might be more ethical towards your employees by giving them better pay. This would be good because they'll be more motivated. Thirdly, you might say it's good to be ethical towards the government by paying your tax. This would be good because the government wouldn't fine you. Right, next you could say it's good to be ethical towards your local people, maybe by not getting too big and not like polluting the area. Because if you keep local people on side, they're more likely to buy your products. And they're not going to protest. And then finally, you could be more ethical towards your suppliers by paying them more, and this would be good because they're more likely to give you a better quality product. Now what I've given you there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 massively easy ones to say that are good. All you've got to do is think about that stakeholder, think about how you could be ethical towards them, and then say why it'd be good to be ethical towards them. Right, next, bad. It's a bit easier with bad, because they're all the same. what's the problem with being ethical towards people? So first of all, if you're being ethical towards customers, you're going to make less profit because you're making a product that's definitely good for them, and that means you're probably not going to be able to make as much money. Again, with employees, you're going to make less profit because you're going to have to pay them too much. With local people, if you try and make less pollution in the area, you're probably going to make less profit. So your first bad thing always is less profit, and it goes along with all of them. What else is bad about being ethical? Second thing that's bad, I'd say, is it's hard to compete. Because the problem is, right, if I had a choice between like a really ethical company who made like a really rubbish phone and a really not very ethical company that made a brilliant phone, it really makes me think, which one would I go for? And I think I'm being honest with myself. I'm a bad person. I'd probably go for the not very ethical one that makes a good phone. I feel bad about that, but this is how life is. It's what people are like. Okay, so we've been able to say loads of good things and only a couple of bad things. So we've got to think, is there anything else bad about being ethical? Right, I just Googled it, and the best way to do it is to actually go through each one. So if you want, you can say less profits because you have to charge a higher... because you're charging a lower price, because you're more ethical towards customers. You might say less profits because you have to have higher costs because of your employees. Less profits because you have to pay more tax. Do you know what I mean? So actually go through each one about why there'd be less profits, rather than saying you'll get less profits overall. If you do that, you're easily going to get this is an 8-mark question. Doing all this, you'd probably get about 25. But the key at the end of it always is a conclusion. And for ethical, I'd probably say the conclusion is it's always better to be ethical. It always is, because if you're not ethical, in the long run, customers are probably not going to go with you, they're not going to be loyal. Okay, so we've done ethical, that's quite nice. I'm going to zoom out of that, and I'm now going to go to this one because it's quite similar. What are the good and bad things about being environmentally friendly? Right, this is so similar to being ethical, it's just like a smaller version of being ethical. But the problem is, it's now 8 marks. So what's good about being environmentally friendly? First of all, it'd be good because more customers. Because certain customers will be really happy about this. Secondly, if you're more environmentally friendly, less fines. So you're not going to be fined by the government. There'll also be less protests. You could argue there might be happier workers. I don't know why, but there might be happier workers because they feel like they're working for a good company. Anything else, really? Just think any other positives. It's good for your reputation. What's important here is not that you say 5 things, it's that you explain whichever ones you go for. Right? But bad about being environmentally friendly is exactly the same as the one before. So it's expensive because you've got to probably got to have better packaging. You've probably got to produce less waste. That's really expensive. And secondly, it might be bad because it's expensive. It's hard to compete. Because how can you compete with these companies who aren't being environmentally friendly? That's pretty much your answer. Once you've done the good things and the bad things, do a final conclusion, and then you're good with that question. Right, we're doing well. Now, if you're getting bored and you're thinking, I'm just going through the motions, stop for a second and just check, have I actually learnt those first 3 things? So I'm going to test you on them right now. I'm going to hide everything by doing that. Okay, so there's 3 things. Just test yourself. Do you know the 2 main features of the European Union? Do you know what's good and bad about being ethical? And do you know what's good and bad about being environmentally friendly? If you can't do them now, stop, do it again. Right, on to the next bit. We're now going to go to how could a single currency in the UK, what the hell? How could a single currency in the UK affect... That's like the worst thing ever. What does that even mean? So I'm going to get rid of that. I obviously didn't mean that. Right. At the minute, this is a hard one. This is why I need to slow down a little bit for this one, and which is why you need to stop before. Right. The UK has got its own currency. It's got pounds, but they could join the euro. If they did, it'd be an absolute disaster. It'd be the stupidest thing anyone's ever done, ever, times 10. But we need to know why that is. So they might ask you, is it a good or bad idea for the UK to join the euro? So you have to have the plus and the minus. Now, we know for a fact it's a dreadful idea, but it's still worth me showing these plus and minuses. So if we join the euro, one of the good things is, it's easier to trade. The reason why it's easier to trade is I could go and buy something from France on the internet and it'd be in pounds, and I'd be really happy because I'd know exactly what the difference is. So the second thing is, as well as being easy to trade, prices are very transparent. What I mean by transparent is, I can quite easily see what the cheapest price is for me. So for example, if I wanted to buy a pair of shoes, I could see that in France the shoes are cheaper than in the UK, whereas at the minute I can't really see that because in France it's euros, whereas here it's pounds. Okay, but on the other side, now you don't need to know any more than this. If they ask a question longer than this, I'll be amazed, right? But they can't. This would be an 8-mark question. You've got 2 good things. Now let's go for 2 bad things about us joining the euro. Right, first of all, this is dreadful, the euro, but there's loads of things I could talk about too with economics, but we don't want to do that. We want to keep it to a business. So I would say the problem is there might be more competition. The reason why there'd be more competition is now French goods or German goods are easier for UK people to see, so they might go for them if they're cheaper. That's the first downside. Second downside is now we call it menu costs, and you can actually say menu costs. And the menu cost is, if we change the euro, what would every shop have to do? They'd have to change all their signs to euros. I know that seems stupid, but that actually could be really expensive. Now there are much more complicated ones than I've said there, but those 4 will get you the marks, and I don't want you to go any bigger than that, because actually if you try and go bigger, you'll end up going off the point. So if it was that thing, it'd be 8 marks, and the conclusion, if this question comes up, would be, now this is high level, so be ready for this. You can either just go for an easy conclusion, like, it's not a good idea at the minute, because the euro is doing so badly. That'd be fine if you said if the euro is doing really badly. If you want to go really posh, you can say, actually, we wouldn't even be allowed in the euro right now, because our economy is not good enough to be allowed in. So according to the rules, our economy, we've got too much debt to be allowed into the euro. So you could go posh there. But if I'm being honest, you'll probably just say conclusion, not a good idea to go into the euro because the euro is doing so badly. Right, I hope that makes sense. Okay, we are getting there. It's only a 12-minute video so far. This is alright. But in my opinion, you should have probably done this in like 3 or 4 4-minute things and check whether you know it. So, what laws could affect a business? Now, this is the key thing. If they ask you about laws, you do not need to know the names of the laws. So you don't need to know, like, the Consumer Act of 1976, whatever the hell it is. I don't know. Right? You just need to know simple laws that might affect a business. So, they might ask 8 marks and say, how could laws affect a business? So here are some laws. I don't think they'll go 8, because I don't think you can really evaluate this. I think they'll say 6. So let's think. You could say there could be consumer laws. So one consumer law would be that you've got to, the product has to be, what do you have to say? Consumer laws, products has to be what you said it was. So, how do you say that? Right, when on like Xbox, when you're on eBay and it will say you can buy a general Xbox for like £4, and when you get home, it is actually a box of an Xbox. You've got to set whatever you say your product is. It's actually got to be it. Right, now I've got there in the end. Right, it's also got to be safe, because if it's not safe, then you're going against consumer law. Right, another employee is employment law. Right, so think about what are some of the things they've got to think about with employment law. This is easy. They've got to think about the minimum wage, and the minimum wage has to be above. I think it's £6.80 at the minute. They're not allowed to pay anyone less than that. They've also got to have health and safety. Now I can never spell safety. I want to go. No, I don't know how to spell safety, but anyway, safety. Yeah. Right. Anyway, so you got to make sure that health and safety is right. So if you go into a building, it's dangerous for the employees. You're going to get in loads of trouble for this. Right. Consumer law, employment law. What else is there? There'd probably be environmental law. Right, why do you want to be good with environmental law? Because if you're not good with environmental law, and this would be, like pollution, if you're not good with environmental law, then you get loads of fines. Now, for me, they're the 3 kind of main ones. They're the sort of laws you're probably going to be thinking about. But one more law that you could think about is copyright law. So, lots of businesses get in trouble for this because they're copying other people's products. So, it's like Nike copying an Adidas product, or Apple copying a Samsung one. If you do this, you're likely to get fined. Right, so they're the kind of 4 laws that I think about. That's all you need to think about. It's really easy. Just do those 4. Okay, we're on the home straight now. Now, this block up here meant nothing. I don't know why I even had that block. I can't remember why I did it. So here, what I wanted was, now these are hard, so be ready for this. How would the following affect a business? Now it's only ever going to be a 2-mark question in the exam, and if it comes up, I want you to get this right. Now the key word here is, how will the following affect a business? So if income tax goes up, that's taxes on people's income. All you'd have to say is, if income tax went up, people would have less money, so they're going to spend less, which means businesses get less profit. That's all you've got to say in 3 sentences, and you'll get all the marks. Right, if there's a decrease in corporation tax, now corporation tax is a tax on businesses' profits. Right, if there's a decrease in the tax on businesses' profits, what would happen? This means businesses would have more profit. So if they've got more profit, what could they do? If they've got more profit, they could expand. So therefore, they could get a bigger market share, or just something like that, where you're saying more stuff. Okay, the third one, which got cut off on the end of my sheet, it's not the end of the world, is, now this is the hardest one of all of them. It's increase in, what am I going to say? I'm going to say interest rate. Right, the interest rate is the cost of borrowing money. So if interest rates go up, now there's a few things you can say here, but here's the 2 I'd go for. I can't move anywhere. That's really weird. Increase in interest rates. Right. What I'd say here is, if there's an increase in interest rates, people are less likely to borrow, so they're not going to borrow. So I'll put an X to that. They're not going to borrow because it costs them too much to borrow, and they're more likely to save. If they're doing those 2 things, what they're not doing, they're not spending. So if they're not spending, businesses are going to get less profit. And that's the one I'd go for. That's what I'd explain. It's as easy as that. The other thing you could say is, if interest rates are high, then businesses are less likely to take out loans themselves, so they're not going to get bigger. Okay. We are right on the grand end of this. Well, that's really annoying. Can I delete that? It's getting in my way now. Right. So, this last one I haven't said yet, because I might as well, is exchange rate. Now this is hard, so I'm going to simplify it really, really simple. Right, the exchange rate is the cost of one currency against another, also the value of one currency against another. So, for example, if the pound equals $1.50, they count the pound as being quite weak, where if the pound equals $2, then the pound is quite strong. Now, if you go on holiday to America, you love it. You love it when you have a strong pound, because you get more dollars for the amount of pounds. So if you trade in £1,000, you'll get $2,000 instead of 1,500. So you're happy. But in this, when we're talking about exchange rate for businesses, we always say, and it's bizarre, you'd assume a business would want a strong pound. What a business wants, instead of a strong pound, they want a weak pound. That is what they want. They love a weak pound. It's the greatest thing in the world for a business. For a person who's going abroad, they'd actually prefer it the other way around. But don't worry about that. And the reason is, if there's a weak pound, imports into the country become expensive, and exports look cheap. So why is this good for a business? Because so at this point, it's where it's a weak pound like this. If imports are expensive, that means that no one in the UK is going to buy goods from abroad because they're expensive. And also, if exports are cheap, UK firms are going to be able to sell their stuff abroad, and people are going to buy it because the people abroad see it as cheaper. Right, this is what you want. So even though you're thinking to yourself, this makes no sense, all you've got to say is, UK firms would prefer a weak pound because they're going to sell more exports. And even if you just said more exports, you'd be fine. That's it. Just do that. Okay, so that's the answer to that one. Now, what I want you to do is look at all this, right? Look at all this stuff you just learnt. Can you actually do this off by heart? If you can't do it off by heart, you're not going to get that A star that you wanted. You'll get screwed over by one of these questions. If you are prepared to learn these off by heart, you'll be sorted.